Good morning, everyone. Lawrence Fleming here on a very cool morning. Cool for here, it's 50 degrees, so I've got my jacket on to get started. I'm just sitting on the porch of the visitor center in a rocking chair, waiting for the sun to come up. I shot some earlier pictures around here just so you can see the beauty that's here. Today I'm going to take a little bit different tact. We're not going to talk about some upcoming things. I'm just going to read some scripture. I think that we need to stay focused on Jesus and not on events. We've got to keep our strength up. And frankly, it can get depressing if you just think about the future. The future is good for the world in that it will push those last remaining holdouts over the edge to make a decision for Jesus. Now, right now, it's not bad enough for them to make a decision on what color clothes to wear for the day. Don't worry, it'll get there for them. It is calm. And that's kind of how the world seems. There's more going on out there than we realize from the news, as I mentioned in my last video. And I think one of the things that I need to do is I need to sit down and write in the descriptions of my videos what they cover as much as I can, because I can start referencing videos. As we get new followers, new subscribers, they need to know what's going on, and I don't talk about everything every video. That would be boring. So I can refer them to other videos. All of our well-known watchers are relatively quiet. I want to keep making these videos every day, and I'm going to keep talking about Jesus so that we can at least be unified and all together whenever it happens. You know what? Birds are finally starting to fly a little bit. Last night we had some critters in the camp. Probably raccoons. They don't, squirrels don't come up early in the morning, because that's when the bigger creatures are out and they would be supper for them. I didn't see my deer this morning. I guess they're getting used to us and decided to come out later. I get up early. I think it's about 7. Yesterday I drove out and there were 4 deer on the side of the road eating some of the grass. Deer like to eat early in the morning, just about sunrise. I stopped the car and I'm still on the road, but there's nobody out. And I'm watching them for about 5 minutes. Then I pulled my camera out. I thought I better get a picture. I was going to shoot some video and show you what I saw. As soon as I pulled my camera out, they started moving to the tree line and they were gone. I guess they're camera shy. They didn't mind me watching, they just didn't want a picture taken. And I didn't bother to post that picture. It was inside the car and there was nothing to see. But I will shoot a picture of a tree line to show you what it's like. They can easily slip into that and you won't see them. God has got to be getting anxious, as we all are. He knows the timeline. He knows the exact day. Even though it appears that the rapture is a rapid response from God, that seems like he didn't know it. He knew it. That's not the problem. He doesn't want the enemy to know it. I don't understand how an angel, the greatest and most beautiful angel created, could turn so bad. We're going to look a little bit at that. We're going to look at some of the things that he's tried to do in the past. Do a short history of the world here. I am going to wait a little bit for it to warm up. My hand is getting cold holding this camera. I could have put it on a stand, but then you wouldn't have been able to see me rock. I have been looking at a possible trip coming up, so keep me in mind for travel mercies. If I can pull this off, I want to do it. I have an interim campsite that I want you to see. Even some more beauty of God that I want to be able to share before I do that longer trip. But the longer trip is definitely in the works. And I always say, God willing, on all this stuff, even though I think it's a message from Him that I'm going to be doing all these things, I've got to be available. He may change His mind, which He doesn't really do, but He may change what He tells me. Sometimes we're not ready to hear what God has for us. And you tell us the truth, that will hold us over until we are. Okay, I'm going to go get back in my car and warm up a bit, and then we'll look at some scriptures. I hope you have a blessed Monday. That's when I'm recording this. Start of the week. Start of the work week for most people in this world. Of course, the birds work every day. Hit that record arm. You're stuck in a groove. Most people don't know what a record arm is. Okay, I'll be back in a little bit. We'll do some reading. Bye for now. Well, before we get into the Word, let's take a quick look at some nature that I shot this morning. Get us in the right mood. Enjoy. Beautiful in the morning. Beautiful colors. Beautiful tree. Blue sky. Just look at that. Clouds are finally gone. Sun is coming up, still behind those trees. You can hear the birds. I can hear a woodpecker in the background. We have the still calm of the morning. What will this day bring? We can use nature to figure things out a little bit. You've heard the expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, here's a good example. Try to see the trees back in there. There are trees, obviously, unless you look up. Of course, we all should be looking up. Camouflage. I'm going to make a cup of coffee. Could be tea, but I haven't had my coffee yet. I'll have tea in the afternoon. Getting ready for my reading. And I'm drawing on the power of the sun. We get to have two suns. One in the sky and one in heaven. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll catch you in here in a second. Hello, everybody. Well, I guess I'm going to add this on the end. This is reading time. We need to always hear from God. He doesn't always talk through burning bushes. He typically talks through the Word. Jesus is the Word. So we are learning about God and about Jesus by reading more of the Word. Before I start on, we're going to be in the book of Psalms. Before I go to the previous chapter, chapter 46, which we have courtesy of a quick short prayer to God, I said, God, give me a sign of what you want me to read. And as I'm driving along, two people had Psalm 46 on a sign in their front yard. So we're going to read that. But Psalm 47 may have a familiar verse out of it. A lot of the Psalms do become songs in modern day. These would have been sung in churches back then. They sang songs in churches long before any of us were even thought of. And so they have a whole book. This is included in the Bible. It's that important. Okay, this is Psalm 47. Oh, clap your hands, all you people. Shout to God with a voice of triumph. Sound familiar? I'll just go ahead and finish it. For the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth. He will subdue the peoples under it and the nations under our feet. He will choose our inheritance for us and the excellence of Jacob, whom he loves. Okay, I'm going to be fighting with the pages wanting to turn in this little breeze. It's very comfortable. Perfect time to be outside. Now, before I read the actual Word of God, we're going to read the commentary again. People that put these commentaries together are very good scholars, and I'm going to have some of my coffee that I just made. If you saw my little burner, that's my backpacking kit. Okay. This is the commentary. Life can be overwhelming. Troubles loom large. Fears and challenges press. Responsibilities, though delightful most of the time, are ever present. I have to make sure that I look to the left side of the camera. I keep finding myself looking at the big red button to stop and start the video, but I got to be looking at the camera. So if I'm not looking at you, I'm not paying attention. Okay. But God will show believers just what to do. We don't know what the psalmist was going through when he wrote Psalm 46, or what disaster was befalling the children of Israel. But the first words out of their mouths of worship were, God is our refuge and strength, a very pleasant help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. That's really the meaning of all that I try to do here. Yes, there's all kinds of things going on. But don't worry about them. Notice that not fearing is determined as a choice. Fear won't help you, but God will. Psalm 46 provided powerful truths for the Israelites. Even though the earth be removed, the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, waters roar and troubled, the mountains shake, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be removed. After all, the confession of God and the psalmist who trusts him, worshipers receive the best assurance they could get. God's voice saying, "Be still and know that I am God." Okay, let's take a look at the actual text itself. I'm reading again out of the New King James. Another familiar verse, verse 1, Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, even though the earth be removed and the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling. And it says Selah, finished. There is a river whose stream shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her. Just at the break of dawn, the nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth, and he breaks the bows and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in earth. The Lord of hosts is with me. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Very calming song to be singing during these times. No matter how angry these countries get with each other, no matter how much they war with each other, God's still in charge. He can stop it at any moment. He's letting it go on for a reason. A lot of times we don't know the reason. Sometimes a country's being punished. Israel was punished countless times, taken over by another country, led off captive, put in slavery, all because they wouldn't listen to God. God gave them some very simple instructions. Man complicated them. Moses started with 10 commandments. You should see the volumes of laws that they have. And then to add to that, then they had to have explanations of the laws. The Talmud and the Mishnah, written by priests over the years. There's no way you could follow the laws and get anywhere. You couldn't take a step and not break one at least. And then you had to do sacrifices. Nobody has enough money to sacrifice for all the laws that they wrote, because you've got to have ox or lamb or birds, something to put up on the altar. They got to have a shed blood. The rich seemed to be able to do what they wanted. They could get away with anything they wanted because they had enough money to buy all the sacrifices that they needed. Oh, I got bugs in my hair. I just washed my hair, by the way, so you won't find any critters in there. So leave me alone. This was laundry and shower day, which is what I did earlier. So I'm good now. I can go the rest of the week. I haven't decided where I'm going yet. And that you can keep me in prayers for. I can go back to any of the sites I've been to. I don't want to do that. But I don't know which of the countless choices I've got. Do I go north? Do I go south? I'm in Georgia. I'm in the middle of it, basically. The mountains will be cooler, but we've been cold down here, so I don't need to go to the mountains. I know the minute I turn south, it'll be 100 degrees the next day. We could go to the coast. Georgia has a little bit of coast. We have our Star Trek studios down there in the south. I could give you a tour, but that distracts from what I'm doing, so probably won't do that. Now, occasionally I put up a picture of some of the work I do, the acting work I do, but don't get distracted by that. I'm no better than anybody else doing this stuff. In fact, at this point in time, I'm retired. Every once in a while, I get a good role. But a lot of the times, I'm just straight background. I'm as important as the lamp on the table. I'm setting the scene. Now, the picture I just posted, I was a chauffeur, continuing to be a servant. But I never know what I'm going to get. A lot of times I'll put in for something, figuring this is what I want to do. And then I don't get it. They substitute sometimes, bait and switch. You can't trust these guys. The most interesting one I had was I was a stand-in for the priest. Not the priest, I was his stand-in, which meant I stood there until he was ready to act. And I was also in the Case for Christ. Again, just background. The other actors had lines, I didn't. But I was there when they rapped. The wrap meal is always delicious. Lobster and shrimp, you know, all out. It's fun. I don't live in the real world anymore. I kind of am isolated from it, so I kind of get to do, when I'm acting, I kind of get to live that again. When we're kids, we play, you know, cowboys and Indians, which we didn't know that the Indians were good guys, actually. We thought they were bad guys. But that's what we did as kids. There was no carry forward from it. In fact, I've learned to be friends with many Indians, American Indians. But we play, we learn. When I was working in the Scouts, the whole purpose of the Scouts was to teach these young men what choices they could make them complete tasks when they're given them. They get merit badges for learning how to do something. Tying knots, okay, well, unless you go camping, you may not need 100 knots in your memory, but 2 or 3 are going to be helpful. But they can learn everything from computers to whatever. They would decide what they wanted to be when they grew up by doing all these things. Well, guess what? The Boy Scouts had a Scout handbook. We've got one even better. It tells us everything we need to know. If something is troubling you, quite frankly today, if something's troubling you, Google it. There's videos on it. There's scripture references. Everything is self-help nowadays if you don't have anybody else you can talk to. You know, if you have someone you can talk to, that's even better. If you've got a friend or a mate, or if you're married, you should have that communication channel always open. Anytime there's a problem, report it. Sometimes you just want to say, look, I have a problem with this. I don't need your help. I just want to get it off my chest. I want to tell somebody. That's all you have to do. They don't have to say a word. They can be a good listener. You can be a good listener for somebody too. Whatever you need, somebody else needs too. It goes around. So we're waiting. We're getting anxious. Don't get anxious. We don't know the timing. And we don't know the event. And the event, as I've said in my last couple of videos, has got to be horrendous for us to be pulled out of here. I don't wish that on the world. There's a few people that I maybe said, God, I can't I can't see sparing this person. He's done something horrendous. And many times I ask God, to get people off. Okay, flies, that's enough. There's only a handful of people in the existence of this planet that I can think of that really deserve a fiery pit. So I'm glad I don't have to make that choice. Hell's their temporary waiting area, but they're all going to go into the pit of fire. Hell was made, and the pit of fire was made for Satan, not for anybody else. He's supposed to be there by himself. Don't go with him. Tell your friends not to go with him. This world, although amazing, and getting to be out in it, I can attest to that daily, is not our home. Now, God built all this. He can build 1,000 earths. He's got a universe out there that we see that if we just look towards the center of our galaxy, you can see roughly 1 million stars. And when we look into the scope of the universe, when we look up in the night sky, 95% of those stars that you see are not stars at all. Well, if they're moving, they're planets. Planet basically means moving star. But most of them are galaxies. So when you look up and you see a star, it's potentially a galaxy full of billions and billions of stars. And there's billions and billions of galaxies. You give yourself a headache just trying to imagine all that. And yet God has them numbered. That's who we're dealing with. We're not dealing with somebody who's just walking around. Let's make a tree and let's make a bush. No. He's so powerful that we can't even look at him yet. We will be soon, but not yet. Moses got to see the back of him walking away. Don't know what that looked like, but that's all he got to see. Was it an image? I mean, it couldn't be all of God because God is omnipresent. So he had to have an image. Maybe it was Jesus. Don't know. Jesus has been around too from the beginning. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Elohim in Genesis is God in plural. All right. Continue to seek God in all this. We don't know the time. We don't know the time of his second coming, but we can kind of guess. The second coming, for those that want to predict, will probably be on a Jewish holiday. But the rapture, there's nothing tied to it. Because the devil is going to be up to his works, and he can't know. That's the only reason to snatch us away. Ah, that's good. Enjoying a cup of coffee outdoors, or tea, or whatever you want. I don't drink anymore. I'm too old for the ailments that it causes afterwards, but I never drank in excess. If you drink, that's okay. Just don't do it in excess. And don't do it when you're driving or something like that. Be thoughtful about it. It is a drug, so be careful. Same thing goes with food. Be careful what you eat. I have to eat very healthy because my body is becoming tiresome to deal with. I'm sure some of you relate. I just turned 68, so I've got a lot of mileage on this old vehicle. And that's all this is. This is transportation. Jesus, okay, I got a little rabbit hole to go down. Jesus had to be in good shape. Most of the men back then and women had to be. They walked everywhere. Jesus got to ride in Mary's womb on a donkey, and he got to ride on a donkey coming into Jerusalem. But they walked everywhere. And he had to pick rural areas to do his Sermon on the Mount and everything else that he did. He couldn't do it in Jerusalem. They'd come and arrest him. So he'd have to hike out of town. And if you went to the area in Galilee, there's a long distance between all those little towns there. So that's why when they go out on the boat, he's sleeping. He's tired. He has a human body. Granted, he can push it longer than most of us, but there is a limit. He fasted for 40 days a night. I fast every day in between each meal. Oh, I do fast during the week, but I think 3 days is my limit. I start getting lightheaded. I think if you build up to it, and that's the key, anything you got to do that's different than what you've done is you have to build up to it. But I can just, imagine Jesus walking up on the hill. His disciples would be with him, keeping the crowd back. He didn't always heal. There were major healing times where he brought people in to heal, but other times he just sat and talked. If the word got out that he could heal, if he was a smart speaker, he'd say, the food and healing will be at the end. You have to sit through my sermon. But he had a lot of good things to say. He brought all these people out there for them to be a witness to all this. God, how many of us would have loved to have been there? We have an account. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I would have loved to have seen it. If you did it today, shops would be opening up. Get Jesus' sandals over here, half price. Buy the tunic, the scarf. Look like Jesus. They did a little bit of it back then, I'm sure. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to go ahead and put the other video in front of this. You can see me making my coffee. And I did some pictures from just around the campsite area. Enjoy till we meet in the clouds, whenever that is.